Hi, my name's Amanda, I'm 37, and I never thought my own sister would betray our sick mother like this. One evening I came home from work and saw a bright red for sale sign stuck in Mom's front yard, and my heart nearly stopped. That house was all she had left. I thought it had to be a mistake, but it wasn't. Tell me where you're watching from in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories about family, betrayal, and emotional courage. I still remember that evening so clearly it almost plays like a movie in my mind, the kind where your heart races before you even understand what's happening. It was late afternoon. The sky dipped in that warm orange light that usually made our small Michigan neighborhood look peaceful. But that day everything felt off. I pulled into the driveway after my shift at the grocery store, exhausted, thinking about heating up leftovers for Mom. The air smelled like freshly cut grass, and the neighbor's sprinklers clicked rhythmically. Everything ordinary, everything normal, until I looked up and saw it. Right there, planted crookedly in the patchy front yard, stood a bright red for sale sign. For a few seconds I thought my tired eyes were playing tricks on me. I even blinked twice. But no, the letters were real, bold, sharp against the faded white paint of our porch. For sale. My stomach dropped so fast it hurt. I froze on the gravel driveway, clutching the grocery bags against my chest. A bottle of orange juice slipped out and rolled onto the ground, but I didn't even bend down to pick it up. My first thought wasn't logic. It was panic. Why is there a sign? I whispered to no one. The house, Mom's house, was supposed to be her security, her comfort. It was the one thing she held onto after Dad passed away. The place filled with 30 years of memories, creaky floors, and faded wallpaper she refused to change. I walked closer, my shoes crunching over dry leaves. The sign had a real estate logo on it, Benton and Sons Realty, and a phone number. It wasn't a prank. Someone had listed this house. I rushed inside, pushing the door open with my shoulder. Mom! My voice trembled as I set the groceries on the counter. She was sitting in her recliner, wearing her favorite flannel blanket over her knees, flipping through a daytime talk show on low volume. Her oxygen machine hummed softly beside her. Hey, sweetie, she said, smiling faintly. You're home early. Mom. I tried to keep my tone calm, but my heart was pounding. Why is there a for sale sign outside? She blinked at me in confusion. What sign? The one on the front lawn. It says this house is for sale. Oh, she said after a pause, her voice uncertain. Beth mentioned something about that. Just some paperwork, I think. I felt a rush of heat crawl up my neck. Paperwork? Mom, did you sign something? She frowned, rubbing her temples like she was trying to remember. She said it was just to check the property value. Nothing serious. I didn't read much of it, but she told me not to worry. My stomach turned. Beth. Of course. My older sister Beth, who hadn't shown up for Thanksgiving in 3 years, suddenly swooped in 2 months ago talking about helping with Mom's bills and taking care of things. She'd come with a big smile, a fancy purse, and a tone that made her sound like the responsible daughter. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But now I wasn't so sure. I grabbed my phone from my pocket and dialed the number on the real estate sign. A man's voice answered cheerfully. Benton and Sons Realty, how can I help you? Hi, this is Amanda. My mother, Margaret Hayes, lives at 52 Wilbur Street. There's a for sale sign outside. I think there's been a mistake. Oh, no mistake, ma'am, the man said. That property's under contract. We've already had several offers. Your sister, Bethany Hayes, handled the paperwork for your mother. My breath caught. She what? Bethany. She's listed as your mother's legal representative. Is there a problem? I didn't even answer. My hand shook so badly that I ended the call mid-sentence. I turned to Mom, who looked small and lost in her chair. Did Beth ever mention anything about selling the house? She shook her head weakly. She said she was helping, that the bills were piling up. You've been working so much, honey. I thought it would take some pressure off you. I sat down beside her and took her hand. It felt fragile, cold. Mom, she's not helping us. She's helping herself. For a moment, Mom's face twisted in confusion, then worry. Oh no. I didn't mean to make a mess. You didn't, I said softly. You trusted the wrong person. That night I barely slept. I kept pacing between the living room and kitchen, replaying every conversation Beth and I had since she came back into our lives. The little things that hadn't made sense, her insistence on handling the mail, her sudden interest in Mom's doctor bills, her constant talk about property values, it all clicked now. At around midnight, I pulled out the small folder where Mom kept her important papers. The folder was thinner than I remembered. Half the documents were gone. Panic rose in my throat again. I opened the junk drawer where Mom kept her spare keys and found an envelope, the kind used for contracts, with my mother's shaky signature at the bottom. The words jumped out at me. Authorization to list property for sale. Beth's name was written underneath as Authorized Family Representative. My hands trembled as I ran my finger over the ink. It looked like Mom's signature, but something about it felt wrong. Her loops were too steady, too perfect. Mom's hands had been shaky for years. Was it forged? I didn't know enough to tell. But deep down I knew something wasn't right. The next morning, I drove to the small realtor's office listed on the sign. The receptionist smiled politely. "Can I help you?" "Yes," I said, keeping my tone calm. "I'm Amanda Hayes. My mother is Margaret Hayes, the owner of 52 Wilbur Street." Her smile faltered. "Oh, you're the daughter. Your sister's been handling everything. She said your mom's moving soon." "Moving?" I repeated, stunned. "She mentioned a care facility in Lansing. She even said you agreed with the plan." I felt my chest tighten. "That's a lie," I said quietly. The receptionist's eyes softened. She leaned closer and lowered her voice. "Between you and me, your sister seemed in a hurry to sell. I just assumed it was all settled." "Can I see the contract?" I asked. "I'm afraid I can't show you without your sister's consent." I left the office shaking, clutching my car keys so tightly they dug into my palm. When I got home, Mom was asleep in her chair. The house was quiet, the oxygen machine humming its soft rhythm. I sat down beside her and watched her breathe, feeling guilt twist deep inside me. How could I have let this happen? I thought of the day Beth first arrived, her cheerful voice, her hugs, her promises. She'd said, "You're doing so much already, Amanda. Let me handle the boring stuff." And I'd believed her. Now, the woman who used to braid my hair before school had stolen from the one person who'd given us everything. Later that evening, I walked out to the front porch again. The sky was darkening, the street quiet except for the hum of a neighbor's lawn mower. That bright red sign stood there like a warning I couldn't ignore. I didn't cry. Not yet. Instead, I went back inside, grabbed my notebook, and wrote 3 words across the top of a blank page. Find out how. Because if my sister thought she could take everything our mother had built and just walk away, she didn't know me as well as she thought she did. I was done trusting her. Now I was going to find the truth. I didn't sleep much after that night. The next morning, I sat at the kitchen table with my coffee growing cold, staring at my notebook and those 3 words, find out how. The sun came through the window, lighting up the stack of unopened mail Mom had left by the toaster. A few envelopes were from the insurance company, one from the bank. I turned them over slowly, realizing all of them were addressed to Bethany Hayes. Beth had quietly changed the mailing address. That realization hit harder than I expected. It wasn't just about the house anymore, it was everything. The bills, the bank accounts, the control. She'd taken over piece by piece, while I was busy working double shifts and believing she was helping. The smell of coffee turned bitter in my nose. I pushed the mug away and pulled out my phone. My thumb hovered over her name in my contacts. I didn't know what I'd even say if she picked up. "Why are you stealing from Mom?" Didn't sound like the kind of question that ended peacefully. Still, I hit call. She answered on the second ring, her voice cheerful as ever. "Hey sis. How's Mom?" "Beth," I said slowly, trying to keep my voice even. "There's a for sale sign in the yard." There was a pause, then a soft laugh. "Oh, that. Yeah, don't freak out. It's just a preliminary listing to check the market value. Nothing's finalized." "Preliminary," I repeated. "The realtor said it's under contract." Another pause. Longer this time. "Amanda, you're overreacting. You always do this. Mom signed the papers, didn't she? Everything's above board. Did you forge her signature?" Her tone turned sharp. "Watch what you're accusing me of. I'm just trying to keep us from drowning in debt. You think groceries and oxygen tanks pay for themselves?" I clenched the phone so tight it hurt. Don't twist this, Beth. You're selling Mom's home. Without telling me. She sighed dramatically. Amanda, you've always been too emotional to handle the hard stuff. Someone has to make the grown-up decisions. And with that she hung up. The silence afterward felt heavier than any argument. I sat there staring at my reflection in the dark coffee, realizing how easily she dismissed me. The next few days were a blur of quiet investigation. I started checking the mail before Mom could see it. The more I looked, the more patterns I noticed. Notices for accounts I didn't recognize, charges from online stores, and a letter from a local credit union I'd never heard of. I called the number listed and asked to confirm account ownership. The woman on the phone hesitated before saying, "Yes, there's an account under Margaret Hayes, joint with the Bethany Hayes." My pulse quickened. Joint account? When was that opened? Let me see, about 8 months ago. 8 months. That was when Beth first showed up again. When I hung up, I stared out the kitchen window at the red sign still standing like a scar on the lawn. It wasn't just a property sale. Beth had been slowly building a foundation under my nose. She'd planned it. That afternoon, Mom was having her soup at the table. I sat across from her and asked gently, "Mom, do you remember going to the bank with Beth?" She frowned. "I think so. She said we needed to combine things. Said it'd make paying bills easier. Did you know she could move your money?" Her eyes darted nervously. She said she'd never touch it without asking. The spoon in her hand shook slightly. I reached out and steadied it, my throat tightening. I didn't tell her what I knew. Not yet. I couldn't put that guilt on her. Not when she was already fragile. 2 days later, Beth showed up unannounced. Her white SUV pulled into the driveway like a storm cloud. She stepped out wearing sunglasses, her hair perfectly styled, her voice upbeat. "Hey little sis. I thought I'd drop by and check on Mom." I folded my arms. "You mean check on the sale?" Her smile didn't even flinch. "You're really making this dramatic." "It's just business." "Business?" I hissed. "You're selling her home, Beth. The one Dad built. The one Mom begged to keep." She sighed, brushing invisible dust from her sleeve. "Amanda, the world doesn't work on sentiment. Do you even know how much it costs to keep this place running? The medical bills, the taxes, the maintenance. Don't act like you've been paying any of that." Her eyes hardened, and for a moment the polite mask slipped. "I've been handling more than you know. You think your little grocery store job covers everything." That one stung. I looked at her and realized how different we'd become. She was polished, confident, always chasing the next big thing. I was just trying to hold what was left together. Mom shuffled into the room then, smiling when she saw her oldest daughter. "Oh, you two are talking. That's nice." Beth's tone immediately softened. "Of course, Mom. I was just telling Amanda how much easier life will be once we simplify things." "Sell the house, you mean?" I muttered. Beth shot me a warning look. Mom's smile faded. "We're not really selling, are we?" Beth kneeled beside her. "It's just to see what the house is worth, Mom. You trust me, don't you?" The words made my stomach twist. I saw Mom's eyes flicker, part confusion, part trust, part fear. "Of course I do," she said softly. Beth smiled and kissed her hand like she'd just sealed another deal. After she left that night, I sat in the living room surrounded by papers. I wanted to scream, but I knew that wouldn't fix anything. I needed a plan. I started going through Mom's checkbook and noticed small withdrawals. 50 here, 100 there. All signed Bethany Hayes. Then came the big one. $5,000 marked care facility deposit. There was no care facility. The next day, I decided to visit the bank in person. The branch manager, a middle-aged man with kind eyes, greeted me. "How can I help you today?" I explained the situation as calmly as I could. He frowned and pulled up the records. "Yes, your mother came in with your sister last fall. She seemed a bit disoriented. But your sister handled most of the communication. Did anyone verify if my mother understood what she was signing?" He hesitated. "We rely on family representatives. Your sister presented a durable power of attorney." I blinked. "A what?" He printed a copy for me. My mother's signature was there, shaky, uneven. Beth's signature looked perfect. I walked out of that bank feeling hollow. Somehow, Beth had gotten legal power over everything. Her accounts, her property, even her medical decisions. That evening, I called my Aunt Carol, Mom's younger sister, who lived 2 hours away. She'd always been straightforward, never one to sugarcoat things. When I told her everything, she went quiet. Finally, she said, "Amanda, I tried to warn your mom about Beth. She called me months ago saying Beth wanted her to sign some documents. I told her to be careful, but she said she trusted her." My chest ached. I should have seen it sooner. "You couldn't have," Aunt Carol said firmly. "People like Beth know how to sound helpful. They make you feel guilty for questioning them." Her words hit deep. Guilt, that was exactly what Beth used. She made me feel small for not doing enough, while she stole the ground out from under us. A week passed and I began to notice small changes around the house. Beth's perfume lingered in the air after each visit. Mail disappeared from the counter. Mom started asking me strange questions. Do I really owe that much on the house? Or did I forget to pay the bank last month? Beth was feeding her fear. One morning I found Mom sitting in her chair, staring at the floor. "What's wrong?" I asked. She looked up slowly. "Beth said maybe it's best if I move in with her for a while. She says I'm a burden on you." The words hit like a slap. "Mom, you're not a burden." Tears welled in her eyes. "I don't want to cause trouble between you girls." I knelt beside her and took her hands. "You're not causing trouble. She is." That night I sat outside on the porch again, staring at the same red sign glowing faintly under the porch light. The breeze was cold, but I didn't move. Beth wasn't just selling the house. She was rewriting our family's history, turning trust into leverage, love into control. A few days later she called again. "Amanda," she said sweetly, "I need Mom's ID. The realtor needs verification." "Why? You already forged everything you needed." Her voice hardened. "Careful what you say. I'm doing this for Mom's own good. She can't live there forever, and you can't take care of her alone." "I don't need your help," I said. "Then don't call me when it all falls apart." The line went dead. For the first time I realized something. Beth didn't just want money. She wanted control. To be the one who called the shots. The savior in the story she'd written in her own head. Later that night, I walked into Mom's room to check on her. She was asleep, her breathing soft and steady. On her nightstand I saw a small folded note in Beth's handwriting. "Don't worry, Mom. Soon you'll be free from all this stress." I stared at it, the words turning in my mind. Free? From what? From me? From her home? From everything familiar? I tucked the note into my pocket and whispered, "Not if I can help it." Because now I knew exactly what Beth had done, and it was time to start taking back what she stole. That night I couldn't sleep. The note I'd found in Mom's room, Beth's delicate looping handwriting, kept replaying in my head like a warning. Soon you'll be free from all this stress. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling as the clock ticked past midnight. The house felt unnervingly quiet, except for the soft hum of Mom's oxygen machine down the hall. Every sound, the creak of the walls, the whisper of wind against the window, felt amplified by the weight in my chest. Beth had crossed too many lines. She'd taken Mom's trust, her money, and now she was trying to take her home. But what terrified me most wasn't what she'd done. It was that no one believed me. Not Mom. Not the bank. No one. If I wanted to stop her, I needed proof. Real, undeniable proof. I got up, pulled on a sweater, and quietly made my way to the kitchen. The table was still cluttered with papers from earlier. The bank letters, copies of documents, and a few crumpled notes I'd scribbled in frustration. I sat down, spread everything out, and stared at it like a puzzle. Somewhere in all this chaos was the evidence I needed. But where? I started with what I knew. Beth had a joint account, a power of attorney, and access to every penny Mom had saved. The question was, how did she get it all approved without someone noticing? That's when I remembered. Beth had mentioned something about updating Mom's insurance information months ago. At the time it hadn't seemed suspicious, but now it fit perfectly into her pattern. I reached for the drawer where Mom kept her old files. Folders, receipts, warranties. Everything neatly labeled in her handwriting. I went through each one until I found a blue folder marked Insurance and Medical. Inside were statements, letters, and a few official-looking documents. My heart skipped when I spotted one that looked newer than the rest. A typed form dated just a few months ago. I leaned closer. It was a life insurance beneficiary change. The signature line at the bottom made my stomach twist. It wasn't Mom's handwriting. It was too neat, too steady. "Beth," I whispered, tracing the pen marks with my finger. For a moment I just sat there, staring at the paper. It felt like holding a live wire. Dangerous, but I couldn't let go. This was it. Proof that she was manipulating Mom's finances. But one piece of paper wasn't enough. I needed to show that Beth had forged the signatures, that she'd deliberately taken control. That meant I had to find every document she'd touched. The next morning, I decided to go through Beth's things. She wasn't living with us, but she often stayed overnight when she visited. She kept a few boxes and bags in the guest room. "For convenience," she used to say. Mom was resting, so I quietly slipped into the spare room. It still smelled faintly of her perfume. Expensive, floral, suffocating. Her travel bag sat near the closet, half-zipped. I hesitated for a second, then I unzipped it. Inside were neatly folded clothes, a few makeup kits, and her laptop. I opened the small side pocket and froze. There was an envelope thick filled with papers. I pulled it out and flipped through. Contracts, bank statements, receipts, and then a copy of Mom's will. Except this wasn't the version I'd seen years ago. The date was new. The witnesses were different. And most importantly, Beth's name was written as the sole executor and primary beneficiary. My hands shook as I turned the pages. No, she didn't. But she did. I scanned every line, trying to make sense of it. The language was clear. In the event of Mom's passing, all assets, including property and savings, would go to Bethany Hayes. I was listed, yes, but only as a secondary recipient. Which meant if anything happened to Mom before Beth was challenged, everything would already belong to her. I sank onto the bed, clutching the papers. A wave of dizziness washed over me. It wasn't just greed, it was calculation. And the scariest part? She had every legal document to make it look legitimate. The front door creaked open suddenly. My heart stopped. "Amanda!" Mom's voice echoed faintly from the living room. I shoved the papers back into the envelope and quickly zipped the bag. "In here, Mom," I said, forcing my voice to sound calm. She peeked in, smiling faintly. I thought I heard something. Couldn't sleep. I shook my head. "Just sorting some old files." She nodded, her eyes tired. "You've been working too hard, sweetheart. You should rest." I smiled faintly. "I will." When she left, I let out the breath I'd been holding. My pulse was still racing. If Mom saw me with those documents, she'd be confused. And Beth would find out the second she called her. I needed a safer place to hide them. I took the envelope and slid it inside the lining of an old photo album on my shelf, the one filled with childhood pictures. Beth never cared much for nostalgia. Then I sat back, realizing I had a different problem. Even if I had proof of the forged documents, no one would take my word over Beth's. She was charming, confident, and had a paper trail that made her look like a guardian angel. I needed someone with authority, someone who could verify the forgery. The next day, I visited Mr. Collins, an old family friend who'd been Dad's accountant. He still ran a small office downtown, tucked between a bakery and a florist. The smell of fresh bread followed me in as I stepped through the glass door. He looked up from his desk and smiled when he saw me. "Amanda Hayes. Haven't seen you in years. How's your mother doing?" I hesitated. "Not great. That's actually why I'm here." His smile faded. "What's going on?" I handed him copies of the bank and insurance documents. "I think my sister's been taking advantage of her, but I need help proving it." He put on his glasses and studied the papers carefully. Minutes passed in silence, broken only by the hum of the old ceiling fan. Finally, he looked up, his expression grave. "These signatures don't match your mother's old ones. Not even close. Can you confirm that?" I asked, hope flickering in my chest. He nodded. "If you get me the originals, I can have a handwriting analyst verify them. But you'll need permission from your mother, or a court order, to make it official." "Beth has power of attorney," I said quietly. He sighed. "Then that complicates things. But don't lose hope, Amanda. If you can find proof that she obtained that power through manipulation or forgery, you can challenge it." His calm tone gave me a spark of strength I didn't realize I needed. "Thank you," I said, gripping his hand. "Really? That night I went home and watched Mom sleep, the soft rhythm of her breathing filling the quiet room. I hated that she was caught in the middle of this, that the person she trusted most was the one betraying her. I looked at her fragile face and whispered, "I'll fix this, Mom. I promise." But promises didn't mean much without action. The next morning I decided to dig deeper. Beth had mentioned once that she kept backups of important files on a cloud drive. Maybe I could find something there. I waited until Sunday when Beth came over again, smiling like nothing was wrong. She spent the afternoon chatting with Mom while pretending I wasn't even there. When she went to take a shower, I slipped quietly into the guest room again and opened her laptop. Password protected. Of course. I tried her birthday, then her dog's name. Nothing worked. But then I remembered something. Dad's favorite number, 1123. She used it for everything growing up. I typed it in. Click. Unlocked. My hands trembled as I opened her files. Folders labeled finances, legal, Mom's docs. I clicked through, heart pounding. There it was. Scanned copies of forms, letters, and bank transfers. Some showed money moving from Mom's account to a new one under Beth's name. Others were emails between Beth and the realtor, discussing closing dates and property valuations. And then I found an email that froze me in place. Subject: Re-transfer confirmation. From Bethany Hayes. To legal.advisor at ***. Once the property closes, I'll make sure Mom is settled somewhere safe. Amanda won't interfere. She still believes the sale is just temporary. The casual tone made my stomach twist. She'd planned to remove me entirely. Before I could read further, I heard the bathroom door creak open. Panic shot through me. I quickly snapped the laptop shut and shoved it back exactly how it was. My heart pounded in my throat as Beth walked in, towel wrapped around her hair. She eyed me curiously. "What are you doing in here?" "Looking for Mom's old photo albums," I lied quickly. "Thought they might be in the closet." Her eyes narrowed for a split second, then she smiled. "You always were the sentimental one." She brushed past me, humming softly as she picked out her clothes. I forced a smile and walked out, my pulse racing. I had what I needed. Now I just had to figure out how to use it. That night I transferred the files from Beth's cloud drive onto a USB stick. My hands were still shaking, but this time it was from adrenaline, not fear. I had copies of everything. Forged documents, transfers, and proof she planned the sale behind Mom's back. For the first time I felt like I could breathe again. But deep down I knew Beth wouldn't give up easily. She'd built her web carefully, and if she found out I was pulling at the threads, she'd come after me. I tucked the USB into my pocket and looked toward Mom's room. The faint sound of her breathing was steady, comforting. "I've got proof now," I whispered. "And I'm not letting her take anything else." As the night settled around the house, I felt a strange calm wash over me. The storm hadn't passed, not yet, but I finally had a weapon. And I was ready to use it. I barely slept that night. The USB stick sat in the drawer beside my bed, small and silent, but it felt heavier than a stone. Every time I closed my eyes, I imagined Beth finding out I'd gone through her files. I saw her smile, sharp, fake, and practiced, turning into something cold. But fear wasn't enough to stop me now. I had proof and it was time to use it. The next morning, the air outside was thick with summer heat. The cicadas were loud, the kind of noise that made you feel trapped in your own thoughts. I stood on the porch with my coffee, watching the neighborhood slowly wake up. The mail truck passed by, kids rode their bikes, and everything looked so normal it almost made me laugh. No one would ever guess that behind that small white house, a quiet war was brewing between two sisters. I looked back inside at Mom's room, her frail body resting, her breathing steady, and made up my mind. Today I'd start setting the trap. I drove downtown and parked a block away from the small law office where Mr. Collins had referred me, to a local elder law attorney named Karen Rhodes. She specialized in cases like this: financial exploitation, caregiver manipulation, and power of attorney abuse. Her office wasn't fancy, just a two-room space above a florist shop. When I walked in, she greeted me with a warm but cautious smile. "You must be Amanda," she said, shaking my hand. "I spoke with Mr. Collins. He told me you might need help with something serious." I nodded, my palms damp. "It's about my sister. She's been taking advantage of my mother's trust and her finances. We sat down and I explained everything. How Beth had convinced Mom to sign the house over, how she'd forged documents, how she was planning to sell it all. Karen listened quietly, taking notes. Her eyes were sharp, her tone calm but steady. When I handed her the USB stick, she slid it into her laptop and scanned the folders. "Well," she said after a moment, "this isn't just family trouble. This is criminal fraud." I swallowed hard. "Can we stop her?" "Yes," she said. "But we have to be strategic. If she finds out too early, she could move money, destroy evidence, or manipulate your mother into saying she gave permission. We'll need her to incriminate herself, willingly." The words hung in the air. Incriminate herself. That's when the idea started forming in my mind. A plan. A trap. 2 days later, Beth called. Her voice was bright and breezy, like nothing had ever gone wrong. "Hey sis. I'm coming over this weekend. Mom's prescriptions need refilling. And I thought we could catch up." It wasn't a request. It was her way of saying she was coming to check what I knew. I smiled through the phone. "That sounds good. Mom will be happy to see you." She paused. "You sound different." "Do I?" I said lightly. "Maybe I'm just tired." After we hung up, I sat down at the kitchen table, staring at my reflection in the window. My hands were shaking, but inside I felt a strange calm. She was walking into the trap herself. Saturday came, humid and gray. Beth showed up in her shiny white SUV, wearing sunglasses and that same confident grin. She hugged Mom, fussed over her, and gave me a polite smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Coffee?" I asked. "Sure," she said, following me into the kitchen. As I poured her a cup, she leaned casually against the counter. "So, how have things been?" "Good," I said, stirring sugar into her mug. "I've been organizing Mom's files, making sure everything's up to date." Her smile faltered slightly. "Really?" "Yeah. It's amazing how much she's kept over the years. Old tax returns, property statements, even copies of that will you helped her update." Beth froze for just a second, long enough for me to notice. Then she recovered. "Well, you know me. I just wanted to make things easier." "I appreciate that," I said. "I just wish I'd been more involved. Maybe I could have helped." She shrugged. "It's okay, Mandy. You were always the emotional one. Mom needed someone practical." That word emotional hit me like a slap. It was her favorite way of putting me down without sounding cruel. I smiled tightly. "You're right. That's why I'm glad we're doing this together now." She raised an eyebrow. "Doing what?" I gestured toward the living room. "I figured we should sit down with Mom and go over everything: bank accounts, property details, bills. You know, transparency." Her eyes flickered with alarm before she quickly hid it. "I don't think that's necessary. It'll just confuse her." I tilted my head. "But if everything's in order, there's nothing to hide, right?" Beth set her cup down a little too hard. "Of course not. I'm just saying it's complicated paperwork." I gave her a soft smile. "Then you can explain it." She looked at me carefully, like she was trying to figure out my angle. But she couldn't see it, not yet. That evening I made dinner, Mom's favorite chicken casserole, and suggested we eat together in the living room. Beth sat beside Mom, pretending to be the perfect daughter, while I quietly placed my phone behind the lamp on the shelf. The recorder app was already running. "So Beth," I began casually, "Mom was wondering about the house. She said she doesn't remember signing anything about selling it." Beth laughed lightly, brushing her hair back. "Oh, that's just her memory. We handled that months ago." Mom frowned. "Handled what?" "The house paperwork," Beth said smoothly. "Remember? You told me it'd be easier for me to take care of it while you rest." I don't remember that," Mom said, looking confused. Beth's smile didn't waver. "Of course you do, Mom. We were sitting right here in this room." My heart pounded as I watched her twist the truth with such ease. I leaned forward. "Beth, can you explain what exactly you meant by take care of it?" She gave me a look. "Why are you asking?" "Because Mom deserves to understand," I said, keeping my tone calm. "And so do I." Beth sighed dramatically, as if I were exhausting her. "Fine. I handled the legal side of things. I got the house listed, made sure the bank knew I was the point of contact. Mom can't handle that kind of responsibility anymore." "So you sold the house," I said. Her eyes flicked toward me and she smirked. Technically, yes. But don't make it sound like something bad. I'll make sure Mom is taken care of. You can relax. The words hung in the air, sharp as glass. Mom's eyes filled with tears. You sold my home? Beth froze, realizing she'd gone too far. It's for your own good, Mom. You can't keep up with the bills. This way you'll have security. Mom shook her head, trembling. I never agreed to that. Beth turned to me, her tone snapping. This is why I didn't want to discuss it. You always make things dramatic. I kept my gaze steady. I'm not making anything. You just admitted it yourself. She blinked, realizing too late what she'd said. The recorder light blinked softly behind the lamp. Later that night, after Mom went to bed, Beth confronted me in the kitchen. What was that about? She hissed. You set me up. I looked her straight in the eye. I asked questions. You answered them. She stepped closer. You think you're so clever, don't you? You have no idea what you're dealing with. I laughed quietly. Actually, I do. For the first time, I saw fear flicker across her face. Not much, just a shadow, but it was there. She grabbed her purse, muttering under her breath. You'll regret this. Then she stormed out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. I stood there for a long moment, my pulse still racing. The house was quiet again, except for the ticking clock and the faint hum of Mom's oxygen machine. I walked over to the lamp, picked up my phone and replayed the recording. Beth's voice was clear as day. Technically, yes. But don't make it sound like something bad. I'll make sure Mom is taken care of. It was enough. Maybe not to end everything yet, but enough to begin. The next morning, I sent the file to Karen with a short message. Got it. What's next? She called within the hour. Amanda, this is perfect. With this recording and your documents, we can freeze the sale process. I'll file an injunction today. I exhaled for what felt like the first time in weeks. So what happens now? She paused. Now we let her realize the walls are closing in. By afternoon, the realtor called. I answered before the second ring. Hi, is this Amanda Hayes? Yes. I'm calling about the house listing. There's been a temporary freeze placed on the sale pending investigation. Do you know anything about that? I smiled faintly. Yes, I do. That evening Beth called me. Her voice was sharp, trembling with fury. What did you do? I leaned against the counter, my tone calm. I just told the truth. You're ruining everything, she shouted. You think anyone's going to believe you over me? I don't have to convince them, I said softly. You already did that yourself. There was silence on the other end, long, heavy, and bitter. Then the call disconnected. When I hung up, I felt a strange mix of exhaustion and relief. The fight wasn't over, but the balance had finally shifted. Mom was still asleep, peaceful for once. I sat beside her bed and brushed her hair back gently. It's okay, Mom, I whispered. She can't hurt us anymore. Outside, the cicadas were still singing loud and relentless. But this time their noise didn't bother me, because for the first time in a long while I knew the truth was louder. And Beth, my brilliant, manipulative sister, had finally fallen into the trap she didn't see coming. For days after Beth's furious call, silence filled the house like thick fog. It wasn't peaceful silence. It was the kind that hummed with everything unspoken. Every creak of the floorboards, every flicker of the light seemed to remind me of what had been said, what had been done, and what still lingered beneath the surface. Mom slept more than usual. Her health had begun to waver again, and though her doctor said it was just fatigue, I could tell it was something deeper. She missed Beth even after everything. Love doesn't just disappear when trust is broken. It hides bruised, waiting for permission to exist again. One evening, as I folded laundry in the living room, I looked around at the old familiar space. The faint scent of lavender still clung to the curtains, the sunlight still filtered through the same lace Mom had bought 20 years ago, and the photos on the walls, Mom and Dad's wedding, me and Beth in our school uniforms, family barbecues, stared back at me like ghosts of simpler times. This house wasn't just a building. It was a living memory. Every inch of it carried laughter, arguments, birthdays, and Sunday mornings when Dad made pancakes that looked like strange faces. Losing it would have been losing everything that once made us a family. But now it was safe again. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was fighting just to keep a roof over Mom's head. I was protecting a legacy. Still, the peace didn't last long. 3 days later, a car pulled into the driveway. Beth's SUV. My stomach tightened. I watched through the curtain as she stepped out, wearing dark sunglasses, her expression unreadable. She stood there for a long moment, staring at the front door, then took a deep breath and walked up the steps. I opened the door before she could knock. Her eyes met mine. "Can we talk?" I didn't move aside right away. "Depends on what about." She sighed. "I'm not here to fight." "Funny," I said quietly. "You said that last time right before you threatened me." Beth looked down, removing her sunglasses. Her eyes were red-rimmed, tired in a way I hadn't seen before. "Please, Mandy. Just 5 minutes." Against every instinct, I stepped aside. She walked in slowly, scanning the house like she was seeing it for the first time. Her gaze lingered on the photo frames, the familiar furniture, the worn edges of the old rug. "It still smells like Mom," she whispered. "Lavender and coffee." "She still makes both," I said flatly. Beth smiled faintly. "Some things never change." I folded my arms. "Some things do." She turned toward me. "I know. That's why I'm here." We sat in the kitchen, the same place where everything had started to fall apart. The sun slanted through the blinds, cutting across the table in golden stripes. Beth rested her hands in front of her, but they trembled slightly. "I got your lawyer's notice," she said. "They froze the sale." "Good. I lost my job last week," she said softly. "And now the bank's threatening to repossess my apartment." I didn't respond. Part of me wanted to feel sympathy. Another part, the stronger one, remembered every cruel word, every lie, every manipulation. She looked up at me, her voice barely above a whisper. "You won, okay? I get it. You always wanted to be the good one, the savior. Congratulations." "That's not what this is about," I said sharply. "Isn't it?" She gave a bitter laugh. "You always needed to be the hero. Even as kids, you had to fix everything. Dad forgot your birthday once, and you pretended you didn't care just so Mom wouldn't feel bad." Her words stung more than I expected. "This isn't about who's the hero," I said quietly. "It's about what's right." Beth leaned back, her eyes glossy. "And what if I told you I didn't do it just for money? That maybe." I was scared. Scared of what? She hesitated. Losing control. Losing her. Losing everything that made me feel like I mattered. Her voice cracked at the end. I'd seen Beth angry, manipulative, smug, but never vulnerable. For a moment, the sister I used to know peeked through the cracks. The kitchen clock ticked. Outside, wind rattled the maple tree against the window. "Beth," I said after a long pause, "you could have asked for help." She laughed bitterly. "From you? You would have given me a lecture, not help." "Maybe. But I would have still been there." She looked away. "It's hard to ask for help when everyone expects you to have it together. I spent years building a life I didn't even like, just so no one could see how close I was to breaking." Her voice softened as she glanced toward Mom's room. "I didn't mean to hurt her. I just wanted to make sure something stayed mine." The admission settled between us like dust. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But forgiveness isn't a switch you can flip. It's a slow, aching process built piece by piece. "Still," I said quietly, "the house isn't yours, Beth. It's hers. It always was." Beth nodded slowly. "I know. But it's more than that, isn't it?" I frowned. "What do you mean?" She looked around, eyes tracing the walls, the table, the worn wooden floor. "This house, it's everything we were. The good and the bad. The late-night laughter, the fights, the silence after Dad died. Every bit of it's still here. It's like, this house remembers us better than we remember ourselves." I didn't expect those words to hit me as hard as they did. Because she was right. This house did remember. The thought made my throat tighten. That evening, Mom woke up and saw Beth sitting in the living room. For a second, her face lit up. Then confusion crossed it. Then something gentler. "Beth," she said softly. "You came back." Beth stood, hesitant. "Yeah, Mom. I just wanted to see you." Mom smiled faintly. "I thought maybe you were angry." Beth knelt beside her. "I was, but not anymore." Mom touched her hand. "Families argue. But love stays. It always stays." The simplicity of those words broke something in both of us. Beth started crying quietly, the kind of crying that comes from exhaustion, not guilt. Mom pulled her close, whispering the same comforting hum she used when we were little. I stood by the doorway, my chest aching. For the first time, I didn't see Beth as the enemy. I saw her as a flawed, frightened person. Someone who made terrible choices because she didn't know how else to be seen. That night, after Mom went to bed, I found Beth standing by the front door, looking out at the dark yard. "Leaving already?" I asked. She turned slightly. "Yeah, I shouldn't stay long." I handed her a small envelope. Karen, the lawyer, suggested we sign a joint agreement. "If you agree to let Mom's house stay under her name, I'll drop the charges. No court, no mess." Beth stared at it, then at me. "You do that?" "Yes," I said softly. "But you'll have to earn back her trust. That's not something I can give you." She swallowed hard. "I know." As she turned the envelope over in her hands, her eyes glistened again. "Do you ever wonder what Dad would say if he saw us now?" I smiled sadly. "He'd probably tell us to stop being idiots." That made her laugh. A quiet, real laugh that reminded me of summer nights when we used to chase fireflies in the backyard. She tucked the envelope into her purse. "Thank you, Mandy." "Don't thank me yet," I said. "Just keep your word." The next few weeks passed quietly. Mom's health stabilized a little, and she began insisting on watering the garden herself again. I helped her plant fresh daisies by the porch, the same kind she used to grow when Dad was alive. She said flowers needed attention just like people. "Neglect them," she said one morning, "and they stop blooming. But care for them even a little and they surprise you." I knew she wasn't just talking about the garden. Beth started calling occasionally, short, hesitant calls to ask about Mom, never about herself. She didn't push for forgiveness. Maybe she finally understood that silence sometimes is an apology. One afternoon, as I sat on the porch watching the sunlight flicker through the trees, I realized something I hadn't before. This house wasn't just Mom's or mine. It was a keeper of everything we'd lived through. The laughter, the heartbreak, the betrayals, the healing. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And real things are worth saving. A month later, a letter arrived. It was from Beth. Inside was the signed agreement, and a handwritten note. "Mandy, I'm sorry for everything. You were right. The house isn't just wood and walls. It's where we learn to love, to lose, and to forgive. I'm starting over and maybe someday I'll earn my place here again. Love, Beth." I read it twice, then tucked it into the family photo album, right between our childhood pictures. When Mom saw it later that evening, she smiled softly. "You girls will find your way back to each other. This house will see to that." I believed her. Because this house had seen everything. The lies, the pain, the confessions, and somehow it still stood strong. And maybe that was the real meaning of it all. Not just survival, but forgiveness. And the quiet kind of love that refuses to die, no matter how many storms it endures. That night, as the crickets sang outside and the warm glow of the lamps filled the living room, I sat by the window and watched the garden sway in the wind. I thought about all the moments this house had held, good and bad. And how, in the end, it wasn't the walls or the furniture that mattered. It was the people who came back, broken but willing to rebuild. For the first time, I felt at peace. The house had been saved. But more than that, so had we.